flow.
Welcome to episode 93 of the Gluttons For Punishment Podcast, or GFP, a Toronto Maple Leafs and NHL podcast hosted by Michael Lepore and Anthony Bruno. Thank you so much for listening and watching us on YouTube as well. As of February 20th, 2023, the Toronto Maple Leafs are still in second place in the Atlantic Division behind the Boston Bruins. Since our last podcast, some really big things happened in Leaf Nation. Ryan O'Reilly traded to the Toronto Maple Leafs. Let's not forget Noel Acciari.
Yes.
All right. We all know that the big fish is Ryan O'Reilly, but the Leafs also did acquire Noel Acciari, so we will get into the big trade. And we might touch on some of the games that we saw as well. Since our last show, the Leafs are 2-1 with wins over the Blackhawks and Habs. And then another bad loss to the Blackhawks on Sunday night, February 19th. But before we get into all that, it is time to officially welcome in my partner in crime, Mr. Michael Lepore. How you doing, man?
Anthony Bruno, doing very well. Happy Family Day. I had a blast today. I was in attendance at the Ottawa 67s game. For Family Day, it was their biggest crowd of the season, so it was a good time. They tied it up late and won in OT against the North Bay Battalion, so everybody left happy. Episode 93 of the Gluttons For Punishment podcast. Like some of them that we have, and these are the ones we like. This one's an easy one. Killer Doug Gilmour, former captain of the Leafs, and who some may feel is the greatest player in the history of the Toronto Maple Leafs, Selke Award winner. And during his time with Toronto, many pegged him as the best 200-foot player in the game. Interesting piece of history about Doug Gilmour, the number 93 Toronto Maple Leafs. So only two players in the history of the Leafs have worn number 93. The other one being Alexander Godinuk, I hope I'm saying that right, who is a member of the Leafs and who was traded to the Flames as part of the deal for Gilmour. And little piece of trivia, what number did Gilmour wear in Calgary? He wore 39, gets to Toronto and decided to flip it, which is so weird because he flipped it to a number of a player who left in the deal. So if anyone knows, comment down below. Why did Gilmour go from 39 to 93? Is there some story I couldn't find or something? But interesting piece of Leafs history there.
I was not aware at all about that piece of Leafs history, but thank you.
I don't think many people are.
Thank you for enlightening all of us in Leafs Nation, Lepore.
Here to educate.
But yeah, Doug Gilmour, arguably the most beloved Leaf ever.
What a guy.
Like, what a player. And he wasn't here that long, but man, did he leave a lasting impression and impact on this team. So shout out to number 93, Dougie Gilmour. All right, Lepore. The reason we're doing this podcast right now, I mean, we do a podcast every week, but we got to talk about the trade. All right. So let's break this down. Unless you've been living under a rock for the last few days, the Leafs acquired Ryan O'Reilly and Noel Acciari from the St. Louis Blues in exchange for a couple of players that no one really cares about. I know that's kind of harsh to say, in Mikhail Abramov and Adam Gaudette.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Toronto gave up 4 draft picks, a first, second, third, and fourth round pick. One of those picks went to the Minnesota Wild. Double salary retention. The Leafs are only paying O'Reilly like $1.86 million, I believe.
Yeah.
And people were fired up because heading into the trade deadline, the big names on the market, Timo Meier, Patrick Kane, Ryan O'Reilly, Jacob Chikrin, Erik Karlsson potentially, and the Leafs, I don't want to say they went all in because they didn't really go all in. They didn't give up any quality prospects in this trade, but they gave up a pretty significant package here when you look at the draft picks for Ryan O'Reilly. Before I give my take on the trade, when it first happened, Lepore, and sure, you can even let us know if you changed your mind after watching the first 2 games that O'Reilly's played with the Leafs. But when it first happened, you saw the news. What was your initial take?
Getting the alert that came through from the Leafs PR Twitter account, seeing the deal, and you compute it as quickly as you can. I liked it. And the reason why I like the deal is because of the simple answers to the questions. Does this deal make the Toronto Maple Leafs better? Yes. Did anything come out of their lineup? No. Did they give up a solid prospect? No. Do it. Let's move on. Because the things they gave up, the two players they gave up are AHL bodies. In terms of the picks, I mean, they gave a lot of quantity, as you mentioned, a first, second, third, and a fourth. The third was the pick belonging to the Senators as part of the Murray deal. But at the end of the day, people are going to point to the first round pick. Most of us expect the Leafs to pick in the latter parts of that first round. And because I'm a geek for this stuff, the numbers, the chance of a player selected, I think it's after number 21, the chances of them becoming a full-time NHL player, and they define that as 200 games in the NHL, it's a coin flip. So it's a coin flip even to get a body. And the odds of that player, if he's a forward, being a quite impactful player, and they define that as 0.7 points per game, it's about a 1 in 10. So you have to make the deal. Your time is now. You have to make it. And again, you pick that player, or you pick that second rounder, a third rounder, a fourth rounder. You are hoping these guys are part of the lineup in 4 or 5 seasons. Right now, the Toronto Maple Leafs do not care about what's going to happen in 4 or 5 seasons. So initial reaction was, I liked it. It made the team better. And as far as I'm concerned, they did not give up anything that would take away from a potential run or anything that would come into their lineup in the near future. How did you feel, Bruno?
I'm not going to lie. When I first saw the trade, I was not jumping for joy by any means. Now,
okay, I
liked the trade. When it first happened, I said, wow, I didn't really see that coming. And
me neither.
And I thought the Leafs would make a move. But the reason my first reaction was, oh my God, I didn't see this happening, is because Kyle Dubas, like 10 days before the trade happened, had his press conference and said that he probably wasn't going to move his first round pick or Matthew Nyes. And that indicated to me and to a lot of people that the Leafs probably weren't going to make a big splash at the trade deadline. But that was obviously not the case, because he decided to burn the first round pick, 3 other picks. He made his big move. This pretty much takes all the other big names out of play at this point, you would think, considering what they've given up. Now, I do agree with you, Lepore. I don't think they gave up as much as some people are making it sound like they did. Like, besides that first round pick, which is going to be like a bottom 6 to 8 pick in the first round, which sure is pretty valuable, but it's not like you're going to get, like a slam dunk home run, like top 6 forward or top 4 defenseman with that pick, right? So I do like the move, but the reason I was hesitating a little bit is because I would have liked the Leafs to get a little more offensive punch.
Okay.
Like, Timo Meier would have been ideal, but I understand, to get Timo Meier, they probably would have had to give up Matthew Nyes. It would have taken the biggest package, and it remains to be seen if Timo Meier is going to get moved. I think he's going to get moved, and if he does, it is probably going to be the biggest package of the deadline. Like, a team's going to have to unload their top prospect, first round pick, plus. So the more I thought about it, I think Timo Meier was just always out of play for the Leafs. Like, it just never made sense. And then you look at Patrick Kane, and he scored 5 goals over his last 2 games. A big FU not only to the Leafs, but I guess to the rest of the NHL. Some people were saying, he's kind of washed and he's got this hip issue and he's not the same guy and he doesn't care about defense and this and that. That's another guy that would have provided more of an offensive punch. So when I look at Ryan O'Reilly, and I understand he's having a down season, I understand some of that is because of bad luck. There were so many stats that came out on Twitter when the trade went down, showing how the goaltending at 5-on-5 when he's been on the ice has been abysmal. His line mates aren't finishing their chances. That's why his assist numbers are down and his points are down. But I still would have liked a little more offensive punch, because even though a lot of people think, the Leafs suck defensively and can't make a save, like, you look across the board defensively this year, they've been pretty good. And it's not even just about this year, Lepore. I'm thinking about past playoff series. Game 6, Game 7, series on the line. This team has had trouble scoring goals. And if you insert a Timo Meier or a Patrick Kane into the top 6, and it's a Game 6 or Game 7, and you're playing for your life, those are guys that can win you a game and win you a series. So that's the only thing I'm hesitating about. Like, I think it makes the Leafs better. It improves their depth a lot because now it gives them a lot more options, as we've seen so far. John Tavares has now moved to the wing. Ryan O'Reilly's playing center on the second line. I'm sure they're going to experiment with that, over the course of the last 25 games or so and going into the playoffs. So it makes their depth better. I'm just not sure how much better they actually are when you stack them up against Tampa and Boston. And we'll get into that. But that was my initial take on the trade.
So a week ago had Chicago, you're GM of the Toronto Maple Leafs. And a week ago, Chicago calls you and offers you Patrick Kane. And there's a third team involved for the identical package. You do it. Done. You do it.
And I don't want to say this just because I watched Patrick Kane score a hat trick against the Leafs and score 5 goals in his last 2 games. But honestly, man, I just like the game breaking ability a little bit more. And maybe I'm going to sound like a total idiot in, 6 to 8 weeks from now when the Leafs are steamrolling their way through the playoffs with Ryan O'Reilly. But I just feel like that could have been a little bit more impactful. Again, I think they're better, Lepore, but I just feel like they maybe could have done a little bit more. So yeah, maybe I do slightly prefer Patrick Kane, but I still think Ryan O'Reilly's going to fit in well. He's had some early chances. He's had some good chances in the first couple of games that he's played. He's looked good. I think they're going to be fine, but I think there was a more ideal fit. I just don't think it really made sense. That's how I'll explain it.
Yeah, as far as Kane goes, this may come as a shock to people, but I did not want a fucking thing to do with Patrick Kane. I really didn't. People, and you mentioned his defensive numbers. He's acknowledged as the worst defensive player in the league right now. When it goes back 2 or 3 seasons, it's not a matter of advanced stats or eye test. He does not play defense. And I don't want that in the playoffs. And I didn't want it because of the name, and Ryan O'Reilly is a name, but I just think all the attention of a Patrick Kane deal, and not to it adds pressure because there's a lot of pressure on the Maple Leafs already, but it just would have been so loud for the Leafs to get Patrick Kane 88 in a Leafs jersey. They would have spun this whole Kane passing the torch to Matthews thing. I didn't like it. I didn't like it. And with O'Reilly, you mentioned the versatility. It never even really dawned on me when, we knew the Leafs were going to add. It never dawned on me that, a guy like O'Reilly, we can play at center and he can push someone down and push Tavares to the wing. So then maybe he's more effective. I like that deal better than I would have a Patrick Kane deal. And that being said, too, with the third team involved, with Patrick Kane's salary, you would have had to give up more than a third to retain that cash.
It would have cost more for sure to get
way more. And then Timo Meier, he's the gem of this deadline, so it would have cost you Nyes or something, or a body. So yeah, and I'll throw this out there. Maybe this is a hot take. I don't know. Tell me if other people have said this on Twitter or around the Leafs world. Does this deal with Ryan O'Reilly and his versatility, his ability to play center, does it open things up for the Leafs as far as another deal goes that they could let go of something? Because Kerfoot makes $3.5 million, man. Engvall's what, 2.25 million or something like that. And I'm not saying I want one of these two guys out, but you have that versatility now that you can do another deal and move out some cash because you're okay with O'Reilly in that spot. So I like the deal. We'll talk more about what it actually means to the Maple Leafs and whether or not they'll have success. But yeah, like I said, I wanted nothing to do with Patrick Kane. Call me old school. It's just that thing of too much attention, and the team that always makes the huge deal does not win the whole thing. Just how it goes.
No, that's totally fair. And honestly, Lepore, I was more in your camp until I saw how he played this week. And sure, maybe it's recency bias, but I still think Patrick Kane has more in the tank than people realize. And it's the same thing with Ryan O'Reilly. He's having a bad he was having a bad season with St. Louis, but you now put him on a top 5 team in the league with all this talent on the Leafs. He's going to play better. He's going to have better numbers. And it would have been the exact same case with Patrick Kane. You're telling me Patrick Kane would not tear it up and be motivated playing 100%. On a line with Austin Matthews and William Nylander or John Tavares and Mitch Marner. But like you were saying, Lepore, it would have cost too much. The same with Timo Meier. So the more and more I thought about this trade, and not that I was ever against it. Again, I think you have to be, honestly, I think you have to be an idiot to think that this was a bad trade. And sure, maybe people are yelling at me and like, I think it's a bad trade. Bruno, you're an idiot. But like, it helps the Leafs in every area. Like, he's a great all-around player. This guy has won a Conn Smythe trophy. He's won a Stanley Cup. He's performed in the playoffs. In the playoffs last season, Lepore, he had 12 points in 7 games.
Whoa, big stat.
Like, he's close to a point per game player in the playoffs in his career. Like, this is a good player. You have to be stupid to think he's not going to help this team. It's just, was it the ideal fit? But again, the more I think about it, I think it was the right move to make in the context of this season and where the Leafs are at, because I didn't really want them to give up Matthew Nyes. I didn't want them to unload some of their other prospects because they don't really have that many prospects. And I just think it wouldn't have made sense to go after a rental like Patrick Kane or Timo Meier. And sure, you could say Ryan O'Reilly is also a rental, but I think there's more of a chance of re-signing him to maybe a hometown discount than there would be Timo Meier, who's going to go sign for like $9.5 million. Or Patrick Kane, who's still Patrick Kane and probably has a big ego and probably still wants to make a boatload of money as well.
Yeah.
Right.
That was the next point I was going to make about the deal itself, at the possibility of an extension.
Exactly.
The guy, I think someone posted the number. I think the number was $75 million he's made in his career. He's 32 years old. And maybe we're being overly optimistic, but it's happened recently. Maybe he signs a la cheap to play for the Toronto Maple Leafs. So not only did you get him, you have him in your lineup in the future. And there's also the aspect of not having to give up something. So possibly for this year with Nyes, we'll see if he comes out and the Leafs want to give him a shot.
He might play for the Leafs this
year.
So
that was the point I was going to make. So maybe with Kane or Meier, you would have had to give him up. Whereas now, well, you got O'Reilly and now he's in the lineup. So there's that added bonus to it. And if O'Reilly signs, Nyes is going to have a really good shot to make the team next year. So like I'll say it, my wheels have already been turning. O'Reilly resigns, Nyes in the lineup, a healthy Robertson. That's a lot more depth than cheap depth. So again, maybe I'm being overly optimistic, but I'm a Toronto Maple Leafs fan, so I'm allowed.
Yeah, and also I think this is important too, and people might roll their eyes, but he's an Ontario kid.
Yeah.
This guy, and I haven't read too much into it, whether he was like a diehard Leaf fan, but I'm pretty sure this guy was a Leafs fan growing up and his family were Leaf fans as well. Like that stuff's important. And again, you might be rolling your eyes thinking, come on, really? But that stuff is important. Like if you grew up a Leaf fan, you want to be here, you're excited about this, your family's excited. I think all that stuff matters.
Yeah.
It really does. And again, I talked about all his accolades. He's a playoff performer. He's a great leader. I don't think this is Nick Foligno 2.0. Like, I just think O'Reilly is flat out more talented and more impactful than Foligno was at the time of that deal. Like, it's not 100%. Even close.
100%.
So the people who are, and I get it, if you're getting those vibes like, oh my God, Nick Foligno, this guy played 11 games for the Leafs, didn't score a goal, threw out his back. Yeah. Like, I don't think we're going to see that here with Ryan O'Reilly. He's just a flat out better player. I also believe he was younger at the time of this deal than Foligno was at the time he was traded to the Leafs.
Yeah.
But overall, Lepore, I think it was a good deal. It's time for a quick break because we have some breaking news. Manscaped is now selling beard products. That's right. They've gone from waist to face to help you replace that bulky razor with their brand new Beard Hedger Pro Kit. Manscaped helped you get the golden rod of a Greek god, and now they've created the best tools for you to turn heads with a clean, perfectly groomed, and conditioned beard. Finally, tame your mane by going to manscaped.com and using our exclusive promo code GFP20 for 20% off plus free shipping. Lepore, just when you think Manscaped has done it all, now they come out with beard products. This company never misses the mark.
That's right, Anthony Bruno. Manscaped has crushed it with the Lawnmower 4.0. And I really think what they're doing here is they're looking out for their clientele, because I know a lot of you are fucking gross and you've used that Lawnmower 4.0 on your face, which is not cool. So keep going with it. Follow Manscaped, get the beard trimmer, go to the Manscaped website, GFP20 for 20% off and free shipping.
You said it, man. Manscaped knows exactly what's going on. They don't want people using the Lawnmower 4.0 in places they should not be using it. So do the right thing. Go to manscaped.com for 20% off and free shipping using our code GFP20 to grab the Beard Hedger Pro Kit. That's 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com using the promo code GFP20. Now, there's been a lot of talk about this since the trade has been made, that the Leafs may have overpaid. And I don't know why there's such a debate about this. Like, I personally don't think they really overpaid. Like, what's your take on the whole, oh my God, they gave up 4 draft picks? Like, this is absurd.
I don't want to ever say, oh, I never really believe in the case of a team giving up too much, because at the end of the day, the team gives up whatever they're willing to give up for that player, and that's up to them in that moment. And on the other side, the other team has an ask. So if there's an ask, there's an ask, and that is based on what the buzz is of other teams have offered or what they've heard teams are willing to do. So very rarely, especially the post-cap era, have I looked at a deal and said, man, that team got hosed at the deadline. And we look at this deal. Okay, we look at this deal. Like I already talked about the first round pick, the first, second, and the fourth that belonged to Toronto. I mentioned the numbers of the odds of getting an impact player with a first round pick. So the second and the fourth is obviously much worse, way worse. And these are players, again, that would help you in 4 or 5 years. And then the third, we got it from Ottawa for taking Murray. So, like, I would ask people this. I think this is the best way to put it. If you think the Leafs gave up too much, what would have been fair? What you're at least going to, you're at least going to say a first and a second. Okay, so they gave up a fourth and a third that they got in another deal to get it done. Like, whatever, right? So I guess that's how I see it. What do you think, Bruno?
Yeah, and I think Dubas actually explained this pretty well. After the trade, he said, listen, like, we like the prospects that we have. Talking about Matthew Nyes and Topi Niemela and some of the other recent draft picks. So he said, we want to stick with those guys that we have in the system. We've watched them play. We've watched them develop. We would rather give away, the mystery box is what he called it, of draft picks. Like, we don't know what these picks are going to turn into. And sure, you could uncover some gems in the late first round, second and third round, maybe even in the fourth round. But, I really don't think the Leafs gave up that much here. And sure, maybe they're a little bit depleted in terms of like the amount of draft picks that they have over the next like 3 or 4 years, but you can get some of those picks back.
Of course.
You can move down in the draft.
Yeah, people forget that.
You can trade guys for more picks. Like, it's not the end of the world here.
Exactly.
And let's tell it like it is here. Like, it's pretty much a do or die situation for Kyle Dubas. Now, I don't necessarily think it should be. And I know Lepore, you pretty much agree with me on that. Like, I think the Leafs should re-sign Kyle Dubas, even if they lose in the first round this year. And again, people might call us complete idiots for that. But for the most part, this guy's made good decisions. A lot more good decisions than bad decisions. And I don't think he gave up a lot here at all. He's getting an impact player like we talked about. I don't have to go over all the accolades again. And it's like you said, Lepore, like, what would have been the package you would have preferred that the Leafs give up? Just a first and a second? Oh, but because they added a third and a fourth round pick, like, it's, oh my God, they gave up way too much. Yeah. The whole farm system's depleted now. So I don't think that's the case at all. So I think we're both in agreement then that it was fine. It was totally fine what they gave up for Ryan O'Reilly.
In terms of measuring it, had they called and said, okay, Nyes for O'Reilly straight up, would you do it?
Probably not.
Yeah, I feel the same way, because everything that we just went over about the odds of it becoming an impact player and down the line, you could get fucked really quickly and look very bad with a deal like that if Matthew Nyes is a top 6 forward in 2 years or something. So yeah, that's what else were they going to give up? They held on to the prospects. And even with that, had someone told me after a deal like that, giving up Niemela or Nyes, that, yeah, the Leafs gave up too much, I'd still say you have to give up something, and that's what they wanted. But at the same time, I'd more understand the take that they gave up too much, because like I said, you can have an egg on your face in a couple of years when giving away a player like that. Something that it's a known commodity, I guess is the way to put it.
We're going to get into if we think this puts the Leafs in the driver's seat in the Atlantic Division, if this puts them over the edge in terms of matching up against Tampa or Boston. We're going to get into that. So stay tuned for that. But Lepore, before we do, I want to ask you about a couple of things. First of all, has your opinion on the trade changed at all watching O'Reilly's first 2 games as a Leaf? And how surprised were you to see him start as the second line center and to see John Tavares bump to the wing?
Yeah, I was quite surprised in that, but I liked it. And as far as his play, I'm not going to say, oh my goodness, he blew my socks off, but he made an impact. You noticed him. That first chance he got in the first game on the first shift, please, again, it wouldn't have happened to the Leafs. It would have happened against the Leafs, but that just would have been amazing had he buried on that first shift, everyone going crazy. But no, I didn't really change my opinion because I think I got what I expected. And pleasant surprise to see him at center. I like it. And a lot of people had the take when Tavares was first snagged by the Leafs that he would eventually move to wing. So we'll see if that becomes sort of a staple with O'Reilly in the lineup. But I was happy when I heard about the deal. I was happy when I saw what they gave up or did not give up to get him. And watching him, what I expected. A guy that he cares. You could tell in 2 minutes. You mentioned the Foligno thing. I saw someone tweet, and I totally agree with it. He's already done more than Foligno. He's already shown in those whatever amount of shifts he's taken the first 2 games. No, this is a better ad than Foligno.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. My opinion of the trade hasn't changed either because I think he gave exactly what I thought he was going to provide this team. And you said it, man. Like, imagine he scored on that first shift against Montreal. The building would have exploded. Leafs Nation would have exploded. That would have been
haters would have come in.
Oh my God. That would have been the dream scenario. People would have been flooding the ice after that goal. Like, it would have been just bonkers at Scotiabank Arena. But he's looked good so far. He's had some quality chances. Even the Blackhawks game on Sunday night, when the game was already out of hand, and they were down 5-3 after the empty netter. He had that backhand on that breakaway that hit the post. Yeah. Like, he's had chances. He's looked good with Marner and Tavares. I was surprised, though, Lepore. I thought he was going to start as the third line center. Like, I thought Keefe was going to ease him in. And, a lot of people were thinking when the trade went down, like, the first thought that came to people's heads was, oh my God, like, their center depth is nuts because you got Matthews as the first line center, Tavares is the second line center, and then O'Reilly is the third line center. So people thought this is incredible. Like, this is the best center trio in the NHL. O'Reilly's going to start as the 3C. The depth is going to be incredible. But we've seen the first 2 games, the Leafs are like, screw it. We're putting him on the second line. We're loading up the top 6. We're going to take some pressure off John Tavares. And it remains to be seen if they're going to continue with that. I think they are going to experiment with O'Reilly on the third line. Okay. And I don't know who his wingers are going to end up being. I mean, take your pick at this point, whether it's Kerfoot, Engvall, who knows, right? Yarn Croak. But I think they are going to experiment with that. So that surprised me. I would say I was legitimately surprised. I thought they would ease him into the lineup instead of doing that. But I have liked what I've seen so far with him playing on the second line, even though they just lost to the Chicago Blackhawks as a massive favorite.
Yeah, and this deal couldn't have happened a couple weeks ago for our episode 90 because Ryan O'Reilly is the first player in history of the Maple Leafs to don the number. So
that's right. That would have
been thanks, Ryan. Yeah.
Yeah, and Kyle. Thank you, Ryan and Kyle, for screwing over the GFP podcast.
Help us out. God.
All right, Lepore, we have to talk about how this affects the Atlantic Division now. And I have alluded to this, and now we're gonna really dive into this here. So that's all that really matters. I mean, who cares that they lost to Chicago, and who cares that they are now 7-5-4 against the bottom 8 teams in the NHL, as embarrassing as that is.
Yeah.
None of that really matters because all that matters is that they are going to be playing Tampa in the first round of the playoffs. Like, that is set in stone. And if they beat Tampa, they are going to play the Boston Bruins in the second round of the playoffs. So I'm going to start it off with this, Lepore. Does this change anything in the Atlantic Division race? Does this put the Leafs over the edge? You can start with Tampa. You can talk about both Tampa or Boston if you want. But right now, if you're heading into a 7-game playoff series without making any other moves, how do you feel about the Leafs with Ryan O'Reilly against both of these teams right now?
It's not good enough. I still feel that way.
Man.
I know. I hate to say it, but I still don't think they are at a point where I don't even know how to describe it. Because again, you're facing like this 2-headed monster in the division. They need more. I still think they need more. And what I'm circling the D, and I've been screaming it for weeks. And I had visions of, okay, these are the moves Kyle has to make. There's 4 boxes. He needs a stud. He got it. He needs a depth forward. He got it. What's left? He needs some more depth on D, someone who can eat up minutes. And I think he needs another goalie. So ask me in a few weeks if he checks those other 2 boxes, and maybe I'll have a different take. But as far as the question goes, like, can the Toronto Maple Leafs win the Stanley Cup, or will they win the Stanley Cup, or even make it out of the division for that matter? I haven't really changed. My expectations are still not that high. But again, ask me in a couple weeks. They don't have a lot of assets left to give to make the team better, but maybe Kyle can pull something off. But as it stands now, my opinion has not been changed. You, Bruno, you feel any better about our buds?
I feel a little bit better, but I don't think it has significantly moved the needle. And I was even talking about this with some of my friends right when the trade went down. I'm like, I like the trade. And again, I said a lot of this stuff at the start of this show. I like the trade. I like what it did for the depth. Like, you have to be a moron to think Ryan O'Reilly does not make this team even a little bit better. But how much does this move the needle? That remains to be seen. My gut is still telling me that it doesn't move the needle that much. Like, I still think the Leafs are very evenly matched against the Tampa Bay Lightning. You know, say what you want against the Boston Bruins. I even think the Leafs are closely matched even against Boston, as crazy as that sounds. And I've said it. Listen, they're 4-2 against the Bruins in their last 6 games. The last loss came without Austin Matthews. I know the Bruins are having a great season, but I think the Leafs could clip them in a 7-game series. I really think they can. Now, they wouldn't be the favorites. They would be on the road. It's going to be really tough, but I think they can beat them. But yeah, this Ryan O'Reilly trade, like, again, I'm not like, my first thought was not like, oh my God, this team is now good enough to win a Stanley Cup. I think they do have to add something else. I'm not saying that they have to go out and get like Jacob Chikrin or a big name defenseman. And that's pretty much off the board at this point, because they do not have the assets to do it unless they trade one of these prospects, which Kyle Dubas has now said that he doesn't want to do.
Yeah.
So I don't think they're going to get any of these big name guys. Now, could they make a trade for a depth defenseman? We've heard like Luke Shen and guys like that. Those names being bounced around, right? Could they do something like that? Absolutely. How much better does that make them? I'm not entirely sure either, Lepore. And you said it, like, I know you've been banging on this drum for the last like month or so. Like, as good as the defensive numbers have been this season, and again, I have them in front of me. 6th in goals against per game, 6th in shots against per game, 5th in 5-on-5 goals against per 60 minutes, 6th in 5-on-5 expected goals against per 60 minutes, but you're still convinced that like the defense core is just not good enough.
No, you're right. I'm still convinced. I bet it's funny. So as you were going on your rant there, Bruno, I was kind of not that I was in my head backtracking on the point I made and disagreeing with the points you were making, but is it just the reality of, okay, we're in a cap league and you look at these 2 teams, we have Tampa and we have Boston. I've said on this show before, I think sometimes we don't acknowledge things when they're happening because they're right in our face and we don't see how historic they are. This Tampa Bay team is one of the best teams of all time. 3 straight Stanley Cup finals. Okay. Then we have the Boston Bruins on pace for what would be the best regular season in the history of the National Hockey League. So we're in a cap league. Is it really possible for the Leafs to make a move, or for anyone to make a move for that matter, where it's like, yeah, we're going to kick their ass? I mean, no. And I would say the same thing. And I would say the same thing about them. Is there anything that Tampa or Boston could add that I'd be like, we have no chance? Like, no.
Yeah, like Tampa or Boston are not adding Timo Meyer or Patrick Kane.
Oh, fuck, now that you said
I
it,
don't
they
think,
probably
is there
gonna add
any
both
way
of
that
them.
they're adding those guys? I mean, I could look like a total idiot in like a week and a half when Boston acquires Patrick Kane, but like I don't think that they have the cap flexibility to pull that off. Sure, do both of those teams have the assets? I mean, I guess they do, but
Yeah.
I can't really see either of them making that move for like Patrick Kane or Timo Meyer. Like that would, like, the Timo Meyer thing, I think would really put a team like over the edge. Like whoever picks
Carolina.
him up, whether that's Carolina, New Jersey, whoever it is, and it looks like it's going to be an Eastern Conference team, then I'd be like, oh my God, that team is really good. But I don't think Boston or Tampa is going to do that. And regardless of what Boston or Tampa do, Lepore, I agree with you. Like, I don't think I'm going to stop in my tracks and be like, oh my God, this makes them like 5 times better than any other team now. Like, I think they're all going to sort of make like these little depth moves to kind of improve in, small areas and improve just a little bit. Like, I don't think anyone's going to be head and shoulders better than anyone in the Atlantic Division, at least.
Yeah. What prediction time?
Okay.
I say a player. Where's he going? Timo Meyer.
I'm going to say Carolina.
Me too.
And that's terrifying.
I know. Because everyone thinks it's going to be Jersey. So I'm like, fuck, it's going to be Carolina. Okay. Patrick Kane.
Honestly, Lepore, I have no idea where Patrick Kane is going. Like, God. I mean, maybe I would say he's coming to the Eastern Conference as well, but I would put my money on a team in the Metro.
See, I think he's going to I think he's staying in the West.
Really, eh?
If you've heard Vegas, it's going to be somewhere we're not thinking of, like LA or something. For some reason, I'm picturing him staying in the West. And even too, something he would never say out loud. He seemed really disappointed. And he was disappointed when he heard about the Tarasenko deal because the Rangers were clearly on his mind. I don't even know if Kane would want to come to Toronto.
Yeah.
I don't think that's too crazy to think, but you can totally picture him with a Vegas or LA.
Yeah.
Dallas.
Yeah, even Dallas, man. Like, me, I've like secretly been on the Dallas Stars the last like couple of seasons. Like, I've just always thought they're so much better on paper than they've played. And now they're actually like looking really good this season.
Yeah.
I could see him staying in the West. Now that you bring up those points, like, could he go to New Jersey potentially? Like, if they lose out on Timo Meyer, are they going to just go after Patrick Kane at that point?
Yeah.
And the reason, Carolina seems like a perfect fit is because they lost Pacioretty, who injured his Achilles again.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, they have a spot there for Timo Meyer. But yeah, Patrick Kane, man, if I had to take a guess, you know what? Screw it. This is going to be so wrong, but I'll just say he goes to the New Jersey Devils. It's definitely not happening, though.
Okay, so Meyer to Carolina, Kane to New Jersey, Chychrun.
That one, I mean, I said I have no idea where Kane's going. Chychrun to me is just like, this guy's been linked, to a trade for the last like 2 years.
Yeah.
I don't know where this guy's going, man. Like, God, I mean, maybe he's going to Dallas. Like, Dallas could use another defenseman as well. God, man, I'll say he stays in the West somewhere. Screw it. I'll say the Dallas Stars.
Okay.
Chychrun to the Dallas Stars.
Okay. You know where I think he goes?
Where?
The Toronto Maple Leafs.
Are you serious?
I have this weird thing that we're going to pick up a defenseman, either Chychrun or somebody no one's really thinking of, because I think we can make a move where we move cash out.
Okay.
And there's still that Muzzin money is still there. They're going to use it. So I said before that I don't think the Leafs are quite there, but I expect Kyle to get there. And he kind of has to. And so I just think of the names that are a possibility. And why not? He's got term. Back to the thing of, if we do have to give something up of significance, it makes it a lot more easy to digest. So I can see it. And again, like you said about yourself earlier, maybe I look like a complete idiot in a couple of weeks when he scores the winning goal against the Leafs playing for another team. But I'll dream. Jacob Chychrun, Toronto Maple Leafs, blue jersey.
Wow. And in that case, they would have to give up probably a roster player, probably a prospect to get Chychrun. But how about this, Lepore? If the Leafs do get Chychrun, okay, like in a dream world here, does that then put them over the edge against Tampa or Boston?
It's the best they can do. Because now we're going full-blown fuck you mode, as I often say on the show. So, and to that, I was kind of how I said before about the O'Reilly deal. okay, if you thought the Leafs were hosed, what would have been a fair trade? If the Leafs added Ryan O'Reilly and Jacob Chychrun at the deadline and you didn't think it was enough, what's enough?
Yeah.
Really, being realistic. So at that point, I'd be like, okay, we're going. Let's roll. I feel good about it.
Yeah, I think if they do find a way to get Chychrun, like that would be awesome. That would be a huge boost to the blue line. But as we said, man, I really don't think there's any moves out there that's going to put like any of these Atlantic Division teams like head and shoulders above the other teams. And sure, you could say Boston is already head and shoulders above everybody based on the season they've had. But man, you get those three teams, I don't care what combination it is, in a 7-game playoff series. I'm telling you right now, Lepore, like they're going 7 games no matter what.
Yeah, we break all this stuff down. It's going to come down to overtimes and a shot that hits the post or a goal that's scored and called back because of a pick play. It's it's going to come down to, and you can make all these deals. And I think someone posted, was it Money Puck? I think it may have been Money Puck. Money Puck likes the Leafs over Tampa. I know they do. I think they have the Leafs at something around 60-40 to win that series. And it was either Jay Fresh or Dom Lecision who had the Leafs go from 55% to something like 56 or 57% after adding Ryan O'Reilly, which seems insignificant, but at the same time, you're not going to be like 65% to beat the Tampa Bay Lightning. You're not going to be able to build a team like that in a cap world. So I guess you take the additions where you can.
Yeah, exactly. I think that was Dom on Twitter. I saw that I believe he said that his model, as you mentioned, like it only improved the Leafs' chances by like 1.5%.
Yeah, there you go.
Acquiring Ryan O'Reilly. So, and again,
Smythe Trophy winner.
Yeah, I mean, it's wild. Like this dude won the Conn Smythe Trophy in 2019. And listen, people are still worried. Like, is he washed? And I don't, washed is an aggressive word, but is he like a shell of what he used to be? Like some people are worried. I mean, the dude had 12 goals and 19 points in 40 something games before the trade. I mean, that's concerning. But again, I dove into some of his numbers, how his line mates haven't been finishing. The goaltending while he's been on the ice has been abysmal. Like,
yeah, he's been like the unluckiest player he's been like the unluckiest player in the National Hockey League this year.
Exactly. Like, I refuse to believe that someone who just had a point per game playoffs last year, and the St. Louis Blues went 2 rounds. They took the Avalanche to 6 games in the second round. This guy was a point per game player in the playoffs last year. Won a Conn Smythe Trophy in 2019. I refuse to believe that this dude is just done now and can't provide offense. Like, in this situation, playing with the talent he's playing with in Toronto, he's going to be fine, people. He is going to be fine. Is he going to be the impact player that Timo Meier would be or Patrick Kane offensively? Probably not. But is he going to provide a lot of other things? Is he going to win faceoffs and be responsible defensively? And as you said, Lepore, and roll your eyes if you want, is he going to care? Yeah, he's going to fucking care.
Yeah.
This guy's a fucking proven playoff performer. He cares. He's going to be out there working his ass off every shift. He's going to be winning puck battles. He's going to be killing penalties if you need him to do that.
Face-offs. He was like 12 for 14 in the face-off circle that first game. Bananas. Yeah.
So like no matter what, he is going to help. Whether it's putting up points or doing other things, he is going to contribute to this team and he's going to make them better. It's just how much better is it going to make them? That remains to be seen.
And we're adding a beard to the lineup. So let's be serious. It definitely helps our playoff chances. I don't know if you saw this one. I think it was Luke Fox posted this one. And if anyone ever is questioning the grit of the Toronto Maple Leafs, there are 7 players left in the league who do not wear a visor because the whole grandfathered rule.
Oh, yes.
2 of the 7 play for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Ryan O'Reilly, and get ready for it, Jordy Ben. So take that, everyone who harps on the Leafs and their lack of grit.
Lepore, if that's not grit and heart and passion, I don't know what is.
Man. Don Cherry's down all the way.
Oh, man. These dudes are just out there, no visor. They just have their buckets on. Their flow is flapping in the wind. They got no teeth. That is heart and passion and grit written all over it, Lepore.
Is there something more old hockey culture than how guys with visors used to get chirped. Remember Don Cherry used to just rip on guys for wearing visors. And if you explain that to a player now, like I was at, as I mentioned, I was at a 67s game earlier today. If I sat down in front of these teenagers and said that you guys would be criticized to all hell by some of the biggest voices in the industry 20, 30 years ago for wearing visors, would they all just be confused?
Yes, they'd be extremely confused.
What do you mean? Everyone wears a visor, and I've worn it my whole life, and I would never think not to wear one. It's funny, right? How things have changed so much in such a short time.
It's wild, man. No, but I love it. I think he's gonna make an impact. It's only been a couple of games. Let's be patient here. Let's give Sheldon Keefe an opportunity to tinker with these lines and see what works. And sure, they had another bad loss to Chicago, but they still have the 5th best record in the NHL. The sky is not falling. We all know they're playing Tampa in the first round. We all know it's probably going to go 7 games. We all know it's probably going to come down to 1 goal. So let's just relax and get ready for what's to come in April. But Lepore, is there anything else you want to get off your chest before we wrap up this podcast?
I'll just make the point. You just now brought up Sheldon Keefe. I don't know how many people saw. I feel like it didn't get the press it deserved. 3rd fastest coach in the history of the National Hockey League to hit 150 wins. I believe it was Mike Keenan, number 1, and Bruce Boudreau, number 2. I'm sure he piled up those wins with the winning teams he had. But yeah, quite an accomplishment. And Toronto Maple Leafs fans don't get to quite often look at the history of hockey and acknowledge things that we've accomplished because we haven't accomplished very much. So good for Sheldon Keefe, 3rd on the list. So we'll see what the next one is, how fast he can get to 200, 300, and where he falls there.
Dare I say, currently the most disrespected coach in the NHL?
You know what? I would say to that, I wouldn't disagree with you, but I would say that comes with being the Toronto Maple Leafs coach.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because it's no matter what he did, unless he won a cup or went on, right? And I hate the take of, I'm sure people are already screaming, oh, look at the team he's had. Those same people who are criticizing his accomplishment because of the team he's had are the same people saying that this team isn't good enough to go anywhere, right? And now they're already saying, oh, the playoffs are different. Come on. I mean, good teams are good teams. And we're talking about the 3rd fastest guy in the history of the National Hockey League. Oh, he's got an amazing team, a great team. There's been a lot of great and amazing teams in the 100+ year history of the National Hockey League. So it's an accomplishment. And is he disrespected? Yes, but you sign up for that when you play the Toronto Maple Leafs. You can be William Nylander on pace for 45 goals, and people are still shitting on you every intermission on Sportsnet. So
yeah, people still want to trade you for a 3rd pairing defenseman who can't skate.
Yeah,
that's just that. It comes with the territory. When you play for the Toronto Maple Leafs, you're the GM of the Leafs, the coach of the Leafs. Comes with the gig. This is what you got to deal with. But Sheldon Keefe, man, I love that stat. 3rd fastest coach in league history to 150 wins. He's done a great job with the Leafs, despite what a lot of people think or might tell you. Why don't you just tell them that stat? 3rd fastest coach in history to 150 wins.
Yeah, and again, the first one was Mike Keenan. We're going way back. Yeah, unbelievable achievement.
Awesome accomplishment. So the Leafs coming up this week, they have games against Buffalo, Minnesota, and Seattle. A little more difficult than Chicago, Montreal, and Chicago, and the 2 Columbus games before that. So
yeah, but we like our chances more in those ones.
Yeah, exactly.
I forget who we're talking about.
The Leafs dominate all the best teams in the league and then lose to the worst teams in the NHL. Go figure.
Fear not the good teams.
We'll have our eye on how Ryan O'Reilly continues to mix into the lineup. Some of the other things that might happen along the way. We will be watching and we will keep you posted on the next episode. But that is going to do it for episode 93, the Doug Gilmour episode of the Gluttons For Punishment Podcast, or GFP, a Toronto Maple Leafs and NHL podcast hosted by Michael Lepore and Anthony Bruno. If you are listening for the first time, or if you're a longtime listener and you really enjoy the content, it would be a big time help if you can give us a 5-star rating and review on either Apple or Spotify. And if you're watching us on YouTube, we would appreciate it more than you could ever imagine if you smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment down below, and ring the notification bell so you know exactly when the GFP podcast is posting some new content. So for Michael Lepore, I'm Anthony Bruno. Go Leafs, go, and we will see you in the next one.
Thanks, everyone.